you for inviting me to participate in another provocative and interesting discussion. And I'm looking forward to whatever surprise that you might have for me in terms of your questions or your inquiry.
Excellent, excellent. Well, if I could recap the last few sessions that we had online, we talked about, last week we talked about sacrifice, and that turned into a very interesting conversation. You gave some examples of some things that you've had to sacrifice throughout your life. I've given some things that I've had to sacrifice as well. And we've kind of moved through that process. So now we're with the two phases that we have that we've already talked about. I would like to move on to that phase 3, which is essentially suffering. And so as I communicated to you in our green room, I'm having a harder time with processing the suffering aspects of the 4S committee, which is where we're kind of gathering this information from. Mm-hmm. So the first question that I want to ask you, based on that information that I've just given you, is when you say suffering, why is it phase 3? Why isn't it phase 1 or phase 2? What about suffering makes it the next step of the hero's journey?
Okay, that's a great question. And again, I say this in context that this is the 4S committee is a dynamic. It's not linear, although for sake of conversation, we're going to attempt to discuss these concepts in a linear type of fashion. And so with that said, suffering is a natural result of sacrifice. So let me say that one more time. Suffering is a natural result of sacrifice. Now, as I said last week, I use these acronyms so I can remember them. But, and with that said, sacrifice in its inception is about letting go. It's about emptying out. It's about allowing yourself to take on new stuff. So for a moment here, I want to go back to sacrifice, and to let you kind of see what you must do if you expect transformation, or you may expect, well, I'm just going to stay in a continuous mode of struggle and sacrifice. The core part of sacrifice is to empty out. That is, let go of what you thought was your reality. Let go of your paradigms. Let go of your mental map. Determine that Santa Claus is not coming to town. Now, just using that as a metaphor, just using the whole Santa thing, when you first discovered that Santa is not coming to the town, and you sacrifice that belief, you're going to be upset. The suffering is that we as humans do not like to let go. We want to hold on. In a counseling, in a consulting venue, what is hard for the individual is to empty themselves out. They want, their life may be full, but they think they can put some more stuff in it. No more stuff is going, it's just going to spill out on the floor. You must first determine, what are you going to get rid of? What lies, what doesn't serve you well, what are you going to get rid of? And when we get rid of stuff, it's a grief process. And so suffering occurs. So it's just part of, it's not going to be easy to do. You're not going to want to let go. And so it's part of the experience. You have to be in it. Well, I'm going to be unhappy. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to go through I call it a grief process. because I'm going to let go of something that was very familiar with me that now is not familiar with me. Now, we kind of see that in today's life with this trifecta we are, the corona, the economics, and the social upheaval. We kind of see that. What worked last year, it's not working now. And for me as a sociologist, I look around, I says, people are trying to make things work anyway. They're trying to say, oh, no, I want to try to make 2019 happen again. No, it's not going to, 2019 is not going to happen again. 2020, 2021, it's going to be different. We're going to have to give up how we used to do things. And as you can see in our own reality, the suffering is gone. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not doing this. I'm tired of being at home. That's the suffering. Because you're letting go. Another way to look at it is, I call it a death cycle. Everything is in a cycle. Everything lives and dies. And when you actually die, that process of letting go, as you can see in our culture, let's just use a funeral, for example, is a elongated process, because we have to go through a process to let go. And in that process, there's going to be suffering. You see, funerals are long.
Right.
When I say long, they may be 5 days, 10 days, some days 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes a month. And we have to be in that space because we're trying to let go.
Yeah.
And so it's in everything that we want to let go. Those of us that had a great experience in our academic careers at some of these universities, when we graduate, we want to go back as alumni. We don't want to let go, right?
Right.
And when we do, there's this nostalgic thing. I remember the fun. I'm mad because I'm not experiencing that, and that's where the suffering is.
So could you give me an example of a time where you had to suffer?
Anything.
It can be current or it can be in the past, whatever you want to pick, whatever first comes to mind. Why you think about that? Why you think about that, Dr. Bowie? I want to also, because I forgot to do this. I want to, based on Dr. Bowie's explanation of suffering, I want to ask our audience to share with us a time where they had to go through essentially a grieving process of letting go something, and how it turned into a struggle. Are you still going through that grieving process currently? Or were you able to move on to a different step of the grieving process? Please share that with us. And at the end of our broadcast, I will go ahead and share that. Back to you, Dr. Bowie. Do you have any examples?
Okay. Well, I have one example. I mean, if I thought about this, I probably would have even a better example. But I want to just use myself as an example. When I got my corneal transplant at age 32, there was this struggle, and there was something I had to give up. Okay. And what I had to give up in the transplant is that how life occurred prior to age 32 was going to be different. Now, that was like you going into a black hole. So you're going through the sacrifice where you got to let go of everything that you knew to be so prior to this and move into another place. And not to get involved in all the dynamics of that procedure that I had at age 32, I will say this. When I came out of it, I began to determine for myself on things I had to let go of. And that was a suffering. And I was not getting help by the larger society. That is, I had a corner office. I had over 300 people working for me. I was Pharaoh Gerald in those days. So I had all the power and prestige and possessions that you could possibly you can think of. And when I came out of that, all of that was on hold. And I had to give all that up. And what happened is that the world, people in my sphere wanted me to go back. And I said things, at the other side of this, after the transplant was successful, I couldn't go back. Everything was different. That was the suffering. So I had a group of friends. They weren't my friends anymore because my perspective, what was important to me, was all different. And so I suffered. I lost friends, not understanding that on the other side of suffering is surrender, where the growth happens, where the newness comes, where the transformation occurs, where the rebirth happens. I didn't see that at the time. All I saw, woe is me. I have no friends. Is this the end of my career? Who's going to help me? Everything is different now. My perspective is different now, and things that I have to let go of.
So I'm assuming that suffering part of it was very difficult for you, right?
It was very difficult for me. And let me.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Let me say. I was trying to think of a more practical example, but I'll say that my divorce. I was very young, and when I got a divorce, when it was all over, I suffered because I just couldn't believe that my life had changed so much. That means that I had a different type of responsibility as a father. I had a different type of responsibility as an individual. All was new. I remember going to my lawyer and saying, so look, how the hell am I going to pay this child support? And my child support is more than my rent. They said, well, I don't know anything about that. You got to talk to the friend of the court about that. I don't know. That's what you're going to have to pay, or you're going to jail, buddy. Well, I'm thinking how it was a year ago, 2 years ago, and how I did things. Well, obviously, things were different. And a lot of those thought processes no longer worked. That it was, in fact, in my current languages, it was trying to die. Those paradigms were trying to die. And until I had that funeral and buried it and moved on, I was going to be in that suffering stage until I come out on the other side.
Wow. Awesome.
So let me pull a corner on here.
Okay.
Can you think of a time when you had to give up something that required some angst from you? Anything from a physical, mental, relational, or even spiritual level?
Yeah. So when you gave your examples and you were explaining the process to me, there was a couple things that came through my mind. One currently that I'm struggling with right now, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. The thing that I got through that was very difficult for me, that I remember caused a lot of physical and emotional, probably more emotional pain than physical pain, was me getting into the process of graduating college, my undergrad. So in undergrad, it was the life. I had a job, but I really wasn't supporting myself. Essentially, I was being supported by you and the government. So I didn't really have to pay for room and board. I took out some loans, but that was down the road, and I wasn't really thinking about that. And, everything was taken care of. I had my own place, and I had, I could have girls coming over and friends coming over. It was almost like being independent. At the time I was dating this girl, and she had already graduated. So she was essentially kind of taking care of me. She was letting me drive her car, and she would be cooking me dinner. And it was just, I was kind of like a baby. I was just kind of sitting there, and people were just kind of taking care of me. So what happened was that 6 months, maybe about 6 months before I graduated, she broke up with me, which was justifiably. She needed to break up with me. If I was her, I would have did the same thing. But at the time, I didn't want her to break up with me. I was getting too much stuff. She was letting me push her car and everything. So she broke up with me, and that shocked me because at that time, now I had to take care of my own stuff. So And this wasn't even, I hadn't even graduated college at the time. So I didn't hit the reality completely after the breakup, but I took it very hard because essentially I was being very selfish with the relationship. And then on top of that, I graduated college expecting the world to just exalt me with my accomplishment. You know what I'm saying? At the time, I didn't really think that I would even make it to the point where I would graduate college. And I was there, and I had gained a lot of self-esteem on that. My ego was fed by being able to graduate college. So I was expecting jobs to kind of line up and pay me a whole bunch of money. You know, I'm a college grad now. Hook me up. And none of that happened. And I remember sitting in your house. I mean, I had no income, no job, loans coming due. I mean, you were probably looking like this fool needs to go. He's 23 or 22 years old. Get this grown man out of my house. You know what I'm saying? I'm done. I'm done with this dude. So my self-esteem really tanked after that point because I felt worthless. But essentially, I wanted somebody to take care of me. I wanted somebody to find me a job. I wanted somebody to give me the support that I needed to get on track. And everything was being taken away from me. I wanted to go back to my college days, and I couldn't go back there. There was no going back. And so I had made a decision that I was going to stop wallowing in self-pity, and I was going to figure out a way to make some income. Even if it was a little income, I was going to make some income. So I reached deep down, I pushed my ego aside, and I got a job at Starbucks, making $7 an hour. Yes. And that was humiliating for me because I was a college grad. Why am I making $7? I didn't need a college degree to do that. But essentially, that taught me a lot of responsibility. It taught me how to plan and make goals. Eventually, I was able to make my way up to a shift supervisor.
Yes.
Eventually, I was able to afford and buy my own car without the assistance of my parents. And based on those little wins that I was getting, I was building up self-esteem. I was like, okay, I'm paying off a car, so let me see if I can do this now. And then I did that, and I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can do that. And I was succeeding in doing that. Essentially, these were all the things that I was been trained in anyways when I was in college. So at one point, I had gotten to the point where I was ready to move out. And I was scared because I was like, well, now I'm on my own, really on my own. And I'm really paying for myself. And good thing I had a good friend that was able to be one of my roommates. But I was very scared in doing that. But I had built up a lot of confidence based on that suffering, where I was able to pull the trigger on that. And now I look back at that. That was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And so let me just put it in context. And you work through the whole process beautifully. I mean, part of the 4S committee, struggle, sacrifice, and suffering, it's a growth process. It's a generative process. It's a growth process. If you stay with it, you will grow. Depending upon, what are you struggling against, you will grow if you can stay with it. Now there is some a set of thought out there that if the sacrifice is too great because you don't have the capabilities to withstand it, if the suffering is too great because you don't have the mental fortitude to withstand it, that can create other issues. And I would be less than a person to not at least recognize the epidemic that we have in our culture relating to mental illness. Because there's a lot of mental illness, and some of this process, people are just, they don't have the capabilities to go through it. And so it could be so detrimental if you don't have support system, if you don't have, as parents, and you guys have heard me talk about the most important job is being a parent, where the parent operates as a safety net, but at the same time throw you out there and let you swim. Let you get I call it capability. Right. So we want to pay attention to the golden egg, right? We want to pay attention to the golden egg. But to pay attention to the golden egg, guess what? We have to pay attention to the goose. The goose gives the golden egg. So if we grow the goose
Yeah.
through a process,
Yeah.
and hopefully it is a manageable process, you can you can probably get something out of it.
Yeah.
I just got a note from my producer. That would be my wife. That it's gonna rain at 6:38, so I may run out of here and go into my car. They said it wasn't gonna rain, but I'm seeing these clouds. It looks like it's gonna rain, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, we might be done. I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you start running, then we'll know exactly why it is. But yeah, I think you explained it very well. And I think that, and now that I think about it, as you were talking, I was thinking about the capabilities I had gained that I didn't necessarily knew that I had, but I was able to put it into practice in order to get to that point. And maybe if I wasn't being trained in a proper fashion, I would have maybe sunk. And I certainly saw people in the same shoes as me sink because they didn't have the same facilities or support system to be able to overstand the suffering process. And that's one thing that I think our organization, Learning to Be Human, can do. We can give people that training and that facility to be able to withstand the suffering process that we can't avoid. We have to go through it. There's no go around, you know. I mean, I wish there was a go around. I don't think anybody wants to suffer, but there isn't no go around. We have to go through it, but we have to have the tools to be able to get past it.
Once you put a seed in the ground, it has to die and break open for growth to occur. That's a process. And that's not pretty, you know. For the women on our call, the ones that have children, they know the birth process can be excruciating.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, and so you're the sacrifice is giving up that baby, and that's going to be suffering.
Yeah.
You know, I went through your birth, you know, at Sinai Hospital in Detroit, and believe me, you know, your mother was screaming and hollering and cussing along the way.
Mm.
You know, but when you come, the smiles come. When the surrender happens, the birth happens. It's unspeakable joy. And so, as you said, Andre, is that, you know, we've developed all types of ways in which we can move people through struggle, you know, sacrifice, suffering, and surrender, so they can get to that other side where all the gold lies.
Right.
And we're hopeful that we can do more of it. We're doing some of it. Our goal is to do more of it.
Absolutely. 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 You still good there? You're not getting rained on at all?
No, not yet. I haven't felt the drop yet, but these clouds look menacing. But I'm like 3 seconds from I was running in my car.
All right. So what I'm trying to do here is get to our page to see if anybody has said anything, but my internet's kind of going slow. So bear with me a little bit.
Great.
So I don't see any responses at this point. We do have some listeners here, but I'm going to try one more thing real quick and see if we have some people here. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we don't have any responses yet, so that's cool. So I'm all good with what I need to take away from the suffering. Do you have anything else that you would like to add to this, Dr. Bowie?
Oh, no, not really. And, you know, we were clear that this is a dynamic process. It's not a linear process, although we're trying to explain it in linear form so people can kind of grasp the brevity of what we're trying to suppose here. And so, no. And as we go into the surrender, that's the growth process. That's a dynamic process. It's not a linear process, although we're trying to explain it in linear form so people can kind of grasp the brevity of what we're trying to suppose here.
Mhm.
And so, no. And as we go into surrender, that's the growth process. That's the
Dynamic process is not a linear process, although we're
I thought that was you talking.
No, it was a feedback. I said, well, it must record. But what I want to say is that, you know, this is a growth process, and that those that want to take it on, they can find the goal, and I say goal as GOLD, is on the other side of surrender. And so the next time we talk next week, we want to put it together on the generative side. We talked about the letting go, the death side.
Yeah.
What we have to get rid of, the stuff that we have to empty ourselves of. Now we're going to talk about, well, what can we look forward to? What rebirth, what transformation might we see as a result of this? And next week we'll dive into that a little bit deeper.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for that explanation. Thank you for the dialogue, Dr. Bowie. I really appreciate it. I think we're all good here. I want to get you inside so you don't get rained on. You know,
No problem.
You know, you're getting up there in age, and I don't want you to catch a cold or anything like that. But I really appreciate the dialogue. I've taken some things away from this. But like you said, next week we will definitely put these 3 phases together and talk about something that's definitely more uplifting. I mean, everybody wants to talk about, I mean, when you look at a movie, the important part of the movie is when the person comes away from the suffering part of it, and when they are seeing the benefit of all of the sacrifices they have made. And so hopefully we can talk about that next week. Please tune in. We will be here the same time next week, Monday at 6 p.m. Definitely, if you didn't have a chance to, or if you weren't able to see us live, please leave a comment, share with us some different times in your life where you've had to experience some suffering. And are you currently going through the suffering? Have you already come through it? And what allowed you to come through that suffering? And we'll definitely go ahead and communicate with you, maybe not live, but we will maybe respond to your comments. And also please like and share our videos. We want as many people to kind of see what it is that we're doing as possible, not necessarily because we're trying to be popular, but we're trying to spread the good word out there. The good word being that everybody is capable of love and experiencing love and showing love to other people. So thank you guys for tuning in. Dr. Bowie, thank you for tuning in.
You're welcome.
And have a good night.
All right. Peace, y'all. Peace.
Okay, good. Let me stop the recording. Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened, but eventually it started replaying back our own stuff, and I don't know why that stopped.